We're going to be live. We are live. Good evening to the public. This is the November 9th monthly meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services. Oh, I'm looking at, what am I looking at?
You're looking at the minutes from November.
This says November.
November 9th.
November 9th. I'm sorry, I apologize. Let's start over. This is the February 9th meeting, 8th meeting
February 8th.
of the Grosse Ile
2022.
Township Public Services Commission. So this is February 8th Public Service Commission meeting, our regular meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anybody's watching, I hope the rest of the meeting goes better than the opening statement. Anyway, we'll do the roll call. Costick, I'm here. Kennedy will be missing tonight. Les Schmidtke is able
Excused.
to be here tonight. John Reilly,
Here, present.
Pusdesris,
Present.
Laura,
I'm here.
and David Nadeau is present. And David's walking in the room. He's been here but stepped out for a moment. Okay. Earlier this evening, we were fortunate at 6 o'clock to have a study session with some of the members of the Township Board to talk about our road report that we provided to them last October. So we've been here since 6 o'clock, and now we're starting our regular agenda. I'd like to ask for approval of tonight's agenda. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there support?
Support.
Been moved, supported that this evening's agenda, are there any additions or deletions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes of our November 9th, 2021 meeting. That's the last time we had a meeting, and you all have the minutes in front of you. Is there any questions about the minutes? I'll make a motion for approval. Support. Any comments? All in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
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 I just want to comment on the minutes, one thing, before we forget. We talked about the wastewater treatment plant, and if we move forward with our required administrative consent orders for the improvements we have to start to plan for at the wastewater treatment plant, we talked about having some open houses it's in the minutes, this summer, perhaps 1 or 2 open houses, and maybe even some school, inviting school children to come through. And I mentioned that because I don't want to forget that. I think it's important to do something like that. And also, Les Schmidtke inquired, you were having some elevator problems. Has the elevator been fixed yet? Ryan? This is Ryan. Ryan Welch runs our plant.
No, the elevator still is not working. We waited on, there was a repair with the drive unit, and it came back rebuilt. And it turned out that that was not our issue.
You need to turn on the mic. You know, Mike, you want to come turn it on? Do you have it on, Ryan?
I got it on now.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the elevator's not working. We waited for, it was a drive unit, rebuilt, and that came in, and it turned out that did not fix our elevator. So they were there for like the past week now, fixing other items, and still it's not really working right. It bakes badly, so it's unusable. So we're gonna formulate a long-term solution with this elevator. I said, you know, we're not gonna just keep paying them to keep showing up with the labor to keep just looking at the elevator. Kind of stop on all this and look into a long-term solution with this elevator, because we've had very, very costly expenses probably going on a few years now, and it just seems like it's way too expensive with the upkeep. And we had a rebuild with the elevator probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it's never really worked right. And so
And Ryan and I spoke about this actually today. I think both him and I are concerned about paying the elevator contractor to do diagnostic work while their diagnostic work is simply swapping out parts to try to and hope that whatever they're swapping out fixes the problem. So I think our strategy was to talk to the elevator, company, and take issue with the way that they're proceeding with things and the costs associated with the practice, of just taking parts in and out of that elevator, and trying to hope that fixes the issue, and then also try to determine, understand from them why there is an issue and what ultimately we need to do moving forward with this thing, because obviously what we have going on right now is not working and it's very costly. So that's kind of the thoughts moving forward.
I'll leave it up to you guys. Something we shouldn't forget. I hope that every month that goes by that we meet, you'll give us an update on the elevator.
yes, I will. And actually, the supervisor at the elevator company that we currently use, he is going to recommend a long-term fix for all this. So I'm gonna wait and kind of see what he has to say on that. And I don't know how much it involves, whether it be I don't really know, but
You'll work
I'll-
with Derek and come back.
keep you updated on it. In the meantime, if we do have to haul items up and down, we do have floor panels that can be removed, and we can hoist items up and down if we have to for an emergency. So, yep. So,
Thought I'd ask, it was in the minutes and I didn't want to lose track of it. Okay, thanks, Ryan. We'll go through some other items, then I'll get you back up. So we have approved the minutes. Approval of the vouchers, item number 7. Start at page 15 of our packet. I didn't see any items I questioned, so I'm going to make a motion for approval. Is there support? Dave, Nadeau's moved the support. Are there any questions on the vouchers? Item number 7. If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The vouchers are approved. We have our statement of revenues and expenditures. Begins on page 15 of our packet. Unless there's any questions, we'll just receive and file the statement. Finally, on item number 9, we have the treasurer's report dated December 2021. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report? Hearing none, I'll make a motion for approval of the treasurer's report.
Second.
Seconded by Pusdesris. All in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report. With that, there's no public in attendance. The public that was here left. So we'll move on. We'll get you back up to the podium. Give us a report at the wastewater treatment plant.
had pretty low flows at the plant because it's it's been pretty frozen out there, so that's a good thing. The merger right now is on hold right now. Suez is merging with Veolia, and it looks like it just needs some more approvals worldwide. Looks like it's just a formality thing, but that will eventually happen here. So I don't really know anything more about that, but everything is just as usual at the plant. So with that, sludge hauling, we are planning for May with that, but we are kind of waiting to figure out with the weights on the bridge, may be an issue because the equipment that they brought across last year weighs too much, and they can't bring that same equipment across right now on the bridge. So I guess we're gonna have to bring smaller equipment across, or and then on the weights, I'm not sure what the latest is on that.
There's a couple different things at play. We're supposed to find out next week whether there's going to be an adjustment in the weight limits. But we were supposed to find out whether there was going to be an adjustment in the weight limits 2 weeks ago, and we were supposed to be notified about the weight adjustments 3 weeks prior to that, and then we're supposed to be notified about the weight adjustments 3 weeks prior to that. So I don't have a high level of confidence that we'll find out next week, but that's what we're being told right now. In the meantime, we are pursuing with the county potentially some sort of an arrangement to have an escort go across the bridge, or that piece of equipment come across on its own if we close the bridge. I know that they were going to talk to their engineers to see whether that was a possibility. So that's a potential option. I also spoke with Gullett earlier this week, and I told him, just as another redundant effort to review, apparently he has access to some lighter weight equipment, but it's on a rental basis. So I asked him to go ahead and try to pursue seeing if that was available and what the cost on that would be. So we've got a couple of different venues that we're looking at to address that concern. And then, worst case scenario, potentially barging the equipment across might be a possibility. So we've got a lot of different things going on to try to solve that problem.
That's what J.F. Brennan did with some of their heavy stuff. They barged it.
Yeah, we barged some equipment across for the water main project, and we've done that before. It's just there's a cost to it, and then also the type of equipment, because the dewatering equipment is more of a semi-truck based versus some of the other equipment that we've had come across on barges. They were tracked vehicles that could go across rough, surfaces when you get to the shoreline. So it's not as similar. It's not the same as what we had done in the past, but it's not that it's not possible. We just have to figure that out. So we have a lot of different things that we're trying to figure out as to how to address that problem, and we hope that one of them is going to hit. So we expect that one will hit, and we count on one hitting. So
Exactly. The two-parent flex rake system, we had another hole in the rag chute with the washer compactor. Right after that, it split, so me and the rags are just spilling out on the floor downstairs. I have contacted DuParin, and they're currently in the process of making us a shorter rag chute that has less 90s and elbows in it, and they're going to have to core a new hole actually in the cement floor at the plant. And they are pretty certain that with this new rag chute that we aren't going to have these same issues, and this is all under warranty. So, but we are still operating. I mean, the rakes are running and everything. So hopefully this will fix it where you don't have these issues with the rags.
Trying to visualize what you're explaining, and I'm
So in the garage, there's a chute, looks like an elephant trunk
right
that comes out of
in
the
garage.
wall.
Right.
So the problem, for the most part, has been the discharge of those rags out of that chute into the trash, into the dumpster, into the.
Not at the bottom of the parent equipment, it's up in the garage?
The issue here is that for our amount of rags, we don't get enough of them at the plants. So from beginning to end, it takes 3 weeks until you'd see the rags actually dispose of in the garage. So what happens is the rags get so hard and there's so much pressure that it actually makes a hole in the rag chute. So hopefully with the shorter rag chute, those rags will be expelled in a shorter amount of time, and you're not going to have this problem.
That'll be up in the garage?
No, it'll go through the boiler room where that was. It's just gonna make a hole in the floor, and then the dumpster will be out on top out there near the front entrance. So hopefully that'll work.
Well, hopefully, and
But-
I'm just trying to clarify my vision of this thing. It's not at the intake down at the bottom of the,
No,
it's up in the, where the rags spill out.
yeah,
Spill out in the boiler room now?
well, outside the boiler room,
Shorter run.
exactly, and hopefully that takes care of this issue. But
I've seen
in the process, yeah.
seen the rags stuck in the outlet, and I understand what you're talking about. Okay. That's better than having it be down at the 40 feet down at the base,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. Excuse me.
Nothing else really I can really think of.
Other than that, operationally, everything's
Nah.
going okay.
Everything's okay, yeah. We're just moving along like usual. Yeah.
Questions from the commission?
I do. How's the baby?
Real good. She's
How old?
4.5
Now, great.
months. Yep.
Terrific.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we're sleeping a little bit, but
Good.
yeah. Yep. We're all healthy, so yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Ryan.
That's all I got. So all right. Yep.
Action items, Derek?
There's 2 action items for you this evening. The first one is action item A, and this refers to recommending to the Township Board the award of a contract to Detroit Great All for ditch clearing work in Manchester Woods. I spoke with the chairman prior to the meeting, and he had mentioned maybe a desire to add some contingency to this project, just to make sure that if the dollar figure comes in higher than the $16,000, that at least there's some flexibility on that. So if there's interest in doing that, I would incorporate that into the motion if that's the desire of the commission.
This, can you explain, we read the report, but
Yeah, if there's
this
a
is
motion,
new to us,
if there's a motion, I can go kind of in depth into it if you'd like.
right? So since we've talked about it, I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation to retain the services of Detroit Great All for ditch clearing work at a cost not to exceed $6,000. I'm sorry?
16,000.
Oh, I didn't say that? 16,000. Sorry. In the Manchester Woods area. And Derek has provided us with several pictures of flooding, and I didn't see this initially, but the last page of the handout shows you where the ditch would go.
Did you want a motion, part of your motion to add that contingency in?
Well, I looked, yes, I'll add that to it. But as I looked at that length that they're gonna run, it's all wooded area. $16,000, that's the proposed price. If they run into the need to expand the project a little bit, I thought we should add a contingency of 25%, which would take it up to 20,000. Just seems to me to run that distance through the woods, 16,000 seems like an unbelievably low price to me.
They have 90 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks worth of work. Yeah, $92 an hour, I think.
So,
$92 for how many hours?
so my motion would be, to add 25% to the budget, make it $20,000. If they don't need to spend it, they won't.
So just a little bit of history on that, and John, feel free to chime in if you want, because you and I kind of worked on this together. We had gotten a number of complaints, I think last summer, about flooding on Manchester, right in the Park Lane area, down towards the eastern cul-de-sacs, eastern end of Manchester, those cul-de-sacs in that area. So John and I and Carl Bletcher and a couple of the residents in that area went and walked the woods to the south of Manchester. The drainage profile of that area basically is Manchester, that area flows south through the Manchester wooded parcel of property through a large drainage ditch, and then it enters a drain pipe down by Rucker and Lake, and then actually goes out east to Smith's Cut and empties into the canal there. So when we walk the woods, that ditch line that exists that runs north and south in the woods that's shown on your map was choked with trees. It was choked with sediment. It was had a lot of downfalls, deadfalls that had fallen in, a bunch of dams where kids had built forts in the ditch line and stuff, where the water was being restricted running from the north to the south through that ditch line. So at that point in time, we decided it was a priority to get that ditch line maintained and get somebody in there to do some excavating work. So we had told the residents in that area it was something we were going to look at, but we were going to look at it in the wintertime because that area back there is fairly wet. To get somebody back there during the summertime, the spring or the fall, when it was, not frozen, would have been or could be a problem with getting equipment stuck back there. So this really is the proper time to do that work is in the winter while things are frozen. So we did advertise for that work. We did get the one bid or one proposal, and that was from the contractor that actually does our roadside ditching work, Detroit Great All. It'd be with a different piece of equipment that he has, but his rates are pretty similar to what he had for the roadside ditching, right around $92 an hour. I had asked him to put together a not to exceed price based upon his estimate of how long it would take to do the cleaning work in there, and that's where the $16,000 amount's coming from. This money would come out of drainage. That's where the financing for this job would happen. And we're trying to work with him on scheduling or setting up the logistics to bring that equipment over to the island should this pass, because once again, we got the bridge issue that's impacting this as well. So, John, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Derek, the only thing I would add is that impact from the moving the equipment on shore. We're going to have to use a barge to get it here. So we're still waiting for the proposal from the contractor, how much that's going to be. So that will have an impact on your contingency fund.
So,
We're waiting on, the arrangements are made, we're just waiting on the quote for the dollar amount. And then we'll have to get them off too, depending on what the issue is with the weight limit on the bridge.
We'll probably pay that contractor with the barge separate from the contract with this individual. We'll probably pay them directly. So, I mean, theoretically, it shouldn't impact what we're paying Detroit Great All.
Okay.
It would impact, us paying that contractor to move it.
would the 20% work, that 20,000?
I think so, yeah. And I don't know what that dollar figure is gonna be with the barge provider.
But it certainly won't be anything close to those figures.
No, but in essence, we're kind of limited on who we can use in that, just simply because there's not a whole lot of vendors out there to barge equipment back and forth across the river, so.
And just so everybody knows, the access point will be through the open space trail on East River Road, just south of Halcyon. So we're gonna go in through the township property, access that ditch and go north and south from there.
If this was recommended for approval by you tonight, it would go to the board. I think it's on their agenda for the 14th, which is next Monday. If it gets approved by the board, we would try to mobilize as soon as possible, because he's got a month worth of work back there, and that, let's say he mobilizes in there by February 20th. That gets him out of there about March 20th, and we're getting close at that point as far as wet conditions, so.
Okay, can I have a motion for approval? Or support? Who supported it?
I did.
Laura did, okay. Moved and supported, any questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. At
Do you have a
20
question, Dave?
Motion passed at 20,000.
We had the contingency in on the motion. Oh, okay, all right.
You can rewrite the report for $20,000 if you want, up to 20. Whatever you gotta do, okay? Next item, drainage project change order.
At our last DPS meeting, we had recommended the approval and an award of a contract to Campo Brothers for drainage work on West River Road. I believe that was a $110,000 contract that was competitively bid. Campo was the low bidder on that. During that meeting in which you guys addressed that action item, you had asked me to approach the contractor to provide a proposal for a second location. A copy of that proposal was included with this action item, so if there's a motion, we can go a little bit farther into depth on that.
So I'll make the motion to consider approval of us recommending to the Township Board a change order that will total $138,350 to add additional drainage location in the, on West River Road. And you all have the report in front of you, so that's the motion. Is there support? Okay. Dave Nadeau supported it.
So I'm trying to, want to show you a picture of the location. So when we talked at that meeting about adding a second location to the project scope, John and I got together regarding that location, and the area that we're talking about is actually just north of Byromar. This is the second most compromised location on that West River Road stretch. So the contractor that's doing the project that we had talked about last month or in November, when he put the proposal together, he mirrored those unit prices that were applicable from the first project to the second project. There were a couple of unit prices that he had to add in because there's some ditching and some grubbing that's part of this that wasn't part of the other project. So there are a few other costs that weren't built into his original proposal, but for the most part, the prices are included. Most of the prices that were in his first proposal, unit prices, are included in the second one. The project scope here is, you have a drainage ditch that comes out from the east to the west between these two homes. So the project would be ditching from the rear of these properties here to the road, and this drainage ditch goes way back, so this actually brings water from the east to the west. This is just actually where it comes out. So it'd be ditching in here, clearing this out, ditching to the road edge, and then doing some additional ditching from the location of those two homes, which is down in here, along the road to the point where this guardrail is, where this box culvert is located, so that those houses are this direction, that roadside is this direction. It would be ditching to this location and then replacing this box culvert as it crosses the road, and basically exits at the river's edge, which is here. This is actually where it comes out, so you can see it's pretty compromised as far as its exit. And you can't actually see through this pipe going underneath the road to the river side, because it's crushed at some point down in there. So from a drainage standpoint, this would improve everything to the east of that drainage ditch that comes through those two houses, and then also pull the water off this road in this location and give this water a drainage course to get to that exit point into the river. So that's the scope of the work on this second proposal. And I think in your packet there was kind of a diagram that showed the actual locations of this work. So it kind of illustrates what I'm referring to. You will see that this green line on page 30 of your packet, or this blue line on page 30 of your packet, actually crosses this individual's driveway. A culvert pipe will actually have to be installed there as well to allow that water to flow that direction, because there is no pipe underneath that driveway right now. That would have to be something that's installed under this project. So there was allowances made for that as well. So, and then on page 31, also included is 300 feet of paving as part of this project. So you would be tearing up the road where that blue line crosses, and then repaving 150 feet in either direction of that location along West River Road. So allowances have been made in the project budget for that cost as well. So, and we can move those limits if it makes more sense to push them farther north or farther south. Those red lines there are an approximate 150 feet on either side by way of Google Earth's measurement. So it gives you at least some perspective on how far 300 feet gets you in that area. So I do have a pre-construction meeting on Friday. I don't know if you're available, John. I believe it's in the afternoon. I'll send you the exact time, to talk to the winning bidder and the engineers about the first location. The idea is to do both these locations at the same time. The problem is, really we should be, and we are planning on consulting with the county to see if we can piggyback this project on our permit authorization for the first project, so that it's not a whole new permit process. It's actually just a tag along onto that permit. So I don't want to put the township in a position, nor the contractor, of having the county come out and tag us based upon us not having a permit for this. So we're going to try to do that, and hopefully, the permits don't hold up these projects from being done at the same time. So, and I know the engineers are hopeful that they can get them coordinated and approved. So,
Eric, the original West River project, plus the change order costs, plus the Manchester, we're at a total of 264, as amended, 268,000 out of the 350 that was budgeted.
correct, yeah. So the 264 for the two projects plus the 20,000, yeah. So we're below 350 is what we had. And as we go into the budget for next year, when we talk about that later tonight, it's going to be my suggestion that we just, because these projects are probably going to fall into next fiscal year anyways, by the time we actually pay for them, you know, more than likely, we're probably not gonna start these projects till April when frost laws lift and all that. And when they actually do paving, those will actually be in next year's fiscal budget anyways, and won't actually be in this year's fiscal year budget. So we would just budget for these projects for next year, and you wouldn't have spent, you know, near your 350 for this year, so. Yeah, but it's spoken for, correct, yep.
Well, this additional project, it's clearly needed. I looked at it, so I think it's a good call. So are there any other questions from anybody?
Not so much a question, but it seems to me that when you look at the pictures, the lower picture, the size and diameter of the culvert that we're going to replace should be equal to or greater than the one that we're looking at now. Because narrow is bad, wider is better. You're gonna have a lot of debris that gets swept through there through natural flow of water. So I don't know what the plan provides for, but it should be that big or hopefully bigger to allow for more flowage under the road. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me.
It does, and I believe that's the intent from the contractor. I'm taking a look at his bid sheet, and he's got 24-inch, but I'll have to review that with him.
Yeah,
'cause
that's not,
the conversation was to replace like for like, so,
24, I can tell you right now, visually, that's tighter.
so his 12-inch is for that driveway crossing, and his 24-inch, you know, is for underneath the road, so.
Looks to me like, what do you think that is right now? I'm thinking 4 feet. maybe
36.
5. Oh, it's 36? Okay. So you wanna go at least that big, if not bigger.
Yeah, unless.
Just in that spot. The rest of it can be whatever the dimensions already were engineered.
Good point, so we'll go over that with him, so.
You indicated that you think that there's a crushed pipe.
Yeah, you can't see through, there's no daylight underneath that.
This will improve the drainage, for sure. Okay. All right, any other questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and a support. All in favor indicate by saying aye, approval?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So you're all set to go forward with that project.
That'll go to the board on the 14th as well.
Now we have both your report, Derek, and John's report.
Yeah, I'll kind of go through mine quick. Water loss report, 11.268%. Any questions about that? The Les is usually the one that likes to hear that, so. Project status report has been included in your packet. It was put together by Rains. Hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to read through that. I know we're getting late in the night. Do you have any questions about any of the items that are on that? John, do you have anything that you want to add, or you want to wait till your report?
I'm good.
Derek, I have a question for you. On page 2, the basis of design, the project design of the raw sewage pump, number 4, intermediate pumps and new clarifier have been completed. They've been submitted to Eagle. Have we received approval yet?
No, I don't believe so.
Remind me again, when do we have to be under contract for the ACO?
For construction, 2023, I believe, and completion by 2025.
Date we have to be under construction?
I want to say it's October 2023. Yeah. And we've been speaking with the engineer about the estimate, the revised estimates on the cost of that project. So as we talk about millages, as we talk about millage rates, in part of that conversation will be all those things that we need to do under the basis of design, to make sure that we can complete all those with the dollar figure that we end up going for a millage on.
Thank you.
Yep. No other questions on the project status report? John, you want to go into your report?
So everyone's aware we had significant snowfall last week. I'd like to thank the staff for their extra efforts that they made, including George Marks, Mark Fasenhammer, and Sam Kowalski, as well as we received assistance from the airport personnel, being Gene Kowalski and Frank Firmstone. They were a giant help to us in taking care of that issue, as well as our contractor, Campo Brothers, brought in 3 loaders and a backhoe with numerous personnel to assist us with that. So that was a giant help, and I'd like to give them a big thank you. There were 3 water main breaks for the month of January. Now that the snow's on the ground, hopefully that's settled down a little bit and temperatures are warming up, so we might get a couple more here with the temperature change, but hopefully that's done for now. We also have selected additional personnel to join us in the DPS staff. That will be approved at the board level hopefully on the 14th, and we can get some further assistance. So, and that concludes my report for today.
Person have experience?
Yes. In 92, 93, he worked for a DPS in River Rouge. Thank you, Derek.
Eric, discussion items.
There are 3 discussion items on the agenda for tonight. The first one being the request from our waste hauler regarding a contract extension. So there was a narrative that was included in your packet, a memorandum that addressed this item. In summary, Priority is looking to extend their contract with us for a longer term than what we currently have available under our arrangement. Just to remind you, our current contract, our initial term was 3 years. We're coming up on the 3rd year. We're in the 3rd year of that contract. The contract expires the initial 3-year term this November. There are 2 1-year options at the township's discretion that could take our total term out until 2024 if we choose to pick up those options. What they would like to negotiate with us is basically at the conclusion of our 3-year term, so this November, start a new 5-year contract. So I had mentioned to him, to our representative to Priority, that we would need to see some sort of information that, we're paying or we would be paying market rates to give the township some level of comfort that it didn't make sense for us to bid the project or bid the scope of services. So that is attached to this memo, so you can kind of see what we're paying as in comparison to other neighboring communities. That's Priority Services. When I went over this with the chairman, he had asked that I make a recommendation or provide my opinion on what we should do. I think for the most part, Priority has done a good job. Trash service, as I've said all along, is it's a dirty business and it's not perfect. And, we do have our fair share of missed pickups and complaints. But, based upon my conversations with my counterparts in other communities who utilize other vendors, what level of problems we have is not dissimilar to what they have with other vendors, and to a certain extent is less. So I don't necessarily have reservations about continuing to do work with Priority, but I think when you take a look at obligating ourselves to a long-term contract like 5 years, when we still have available options, I think that works more towards the benefit of the vendor than it does necessarily the township. We, by having these 1-year extensions, can continue to evaluate their performance. We can continue to evaluate the pricing. We can continue to evaluate the market. And at any point during those extensions, we decide we want to go a different direction, we have that ability rather than being locked into a 5-year term. So, if I were to give you a recommendation, it would be there are two options available. You still have over a half a year left on the current term with those 2-year options. You really have 2.5 years left to be able to have them under contract, where us having to enter into a 5-year term isn't something that I think we necessarily need to do right now. So, that's my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. But really, from the township standpoint, looking out for our best interest options, to me, seem to be beneficial for us in this type of arrangement. So,
Beneficial to keep the contract, keep the extensions open and use those.
I would agree. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, it kind of puts things in our, it's advantageous for us because it gives us more options dealing with this way rather than going another route. One of the things that Priority has been pushing for, just for reference, they would like to see a 65-gallon recycle container. And one of the benefits that they said by entering into like a 5-year term was we could get those 65-gallon recycle containers and spread the cost of those over a 5-year period and make it fairly affordable. Part of the problem that we have with their service, a lot of the complaints we get is about recyclables flying all over the neighborhood, especially on a windy day. Their comment to that, or what they attribute that problem to, is that these 18-gallon open-topped containers, the stuff just blows out of them, especially when people overpack them. And going to a larger tote for recyclables would alleviate a lot of that problem. But I think that is another conversation because that doesn't come without its problems. Number one, the cost, but number two, storage for our residents. And three, people that don't appreciate that large container for the recyclables and like the way that things are. So I don't know that provides enough incentive for us to enter into a long-term arrangement with them like they're asking for. So
Do that on a weekly basis, the recycling still?
we do it on a weekly basis.
No, if they switch to the larger.
The answer to that was we asked that. The answer was yes.
Most household would not fill that.
Right. And his comment was it doesn't save much money to go to an every other week pickup. People appreciate the weekly pickup on the recyclables, and it really
You lose track. Is this a week on, off?
exactly. He said it causes more problems than anything else. So yeah, probably not on that option. So.
Is this list all of what they serve in the community, or are you just comparing?
It's not. I think it's mostly of what they service in this area. So I think they have. I know that they have Flint and they have other communities other than what's on this list. But my point to him was I can't come to the DPS commission or the township board for that matter and say, hey, we shouldn't go out and competitively bid this. We should extend. Well, and I made a note in the memo. Don't just look at the unit prices, also look at the notes because
Yeah,
our unit prices are based on X, Y, and Z. Some communities are based upon X, some are based upon Y, some are based on X and Y. So we all have and bind different levels of service, and the rates are based upon that. Because our recycle rate alone is like $4.50 a unit. So if we didn't have recyclables, you'd be right down where like Gibraltar is, which they just bid out their service last year. So that's a pretty fresh bid. So.
Seems to me if we go to one of those big containers, that we'd want to go to like twice a month collection or maybe even once a month collection. I think those big containers would hold 4 times of what, except for big boxes that don't get broken down. But recycling, I know there's a lot of talk about it in Florida right now. It's a big cost, and some communities are backing away from it, even though it's important for the length of the landfill. Kind of what I was thinking, and I had a long talk with Derek a couple times in the last month about it. I'd like to see us give them a 2-year extension, and then probably go out and bid and rethink the recycling issue. If we're going to go to the bigger containers, go for a 5-year contract. But I just wonder what the cost would be if you just picked up recyclables once a month. I mean, if people really want to dedicate themselves to recycling, the biggest problem I have is, we get a lot of boxes delivered. A lot of them are small. You don't break those down.
Cut them up.
But I don't cut the little ones up, but I do the big ones. So if people are dedicated recyclers, they can keep the big boxes and store them inside of one another and just set them alongside, I guess. Would they pick those cardboard up? So they probably wouldn't, but that would give us a chance to reconsider 2 years from now what we're gonna do with recycling. So if we have the pricing already from the contractor to extend it 2 years, that gives him something. And let's evaluate this recycling issue.
Yeah, and we don't have to decide on any of this tonight, but it was my responsibility to bring it to your attention that they're asking for this so that you guys can
Well-
give your input on that. So if we want to make it an action item, once again, the contract, the current terms doesn't expire until November. That's a long ways out. You know, if we want to consider it for an action item and recommend to the board picking up options, we can do that at a subsequent meeting, but at least you have this information to be able to consider and think about it in the meantime, so.
Well, if we don't make a decision soon, we're gonna put ourselves in a jam if we decided to rebid it. We need 3-4 months to rebid it.
Oh, sure, yeah. And if the general consensus here off the top of your head, if I'm not hearing somebody say, no, we absolutely gotta rebid this, we don't wanna pick up any options, that's one thing, but
How
I'm
do
not
you,
hearing
does
that.
anybody have a comment? Would you be willing to extend it to 2 years and then reconsider the recycling it 2 years from now?
That's where my head was at.
General feeling, Dave?
You mean,
Extend their contract 2 years. We have the pricing already, and then decide 2 years from now whether we're gonna rebid everything and what we're gonna do about recycling. I look at the recycling bins that my neighbors have, and there's a lot of stuff that shouldn't be in there.
well, that's part of the problem with recycling.
Problem
And
everywhere.
part of the problem with the small container, because it's jammed with things that shouldn't be in there to begin with.
You can't recycle pizza boxes anymore.
There's more,
detergent
there's
containers.
less than that you can recycle.
So,
All the frozen stuff.
but I don't wanna put words in people's mouths. Is everybody sort of in concert that we'd like to go with a 2-year extension for now? And Derek, that gives you something, and then you can come back to us, go back to them and tell them that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a trustee come into my office the other day and he wanted to know if I had any idea how much we recycle. And I just got the tonnage report from the vendor. So, you know, I've got all that information to be able to talk to you about, can we go to these different totes based upon the amount of tonnage that we have and whether that makes sense, because we actually recycle quite a bit. You know, for example, what he gave me here is solid waste is, last year was almost 3,000 tons. Meanwhile, recyclables were almost 1,600 tons. So we're recycling about half as much as we are garbage.
That's a week? That's a week?
That's a year. So 3,000 tons of garbage is what we generate. We generated in 2001, and we generated 1,647 tons of recyclables. So whether or not you could go to a monthly recycle pickup on a 65-gallon container, you probably couldn't, because you're generating too many recyclables to be able to only do a monthly pickup. So, and we can have all those conversations and figure all that out, but, so, well, I just thought that was interesting.
It is. Well, did I just restate a sense of how you all feel about going for a 2-year extension? Dave?
Yeah,
All right, so you've got some direction.
Okay. All right.
The sooner we settle it, the better.
Okay.
Whether
All right.
Next month or the month after, whatever, okay?
Did you do the vote and everything?
What's that?
Did you do the vote and everything? A motion and a vote, or?
Oh, well, do you want to,
If you're prepared to do that tonight, that's up to you, but,
so the recommendation was to exercise the options and extend the term of the contract with Priority Waste till November of 2024. I'll make that motion. Is there support? Exercise the
Okay.
options.
I'm with
to
you.
extend their contract 2 years on the current circumstances, current operational process till November 14th, 2024.
yeah, and this will be a recommendation to the board, so we'll take it to them in the end of November, or the beginning of March.
She'll bring back because you're gonna have to budget for this coming year anyway. Okay?
Yep. Was there a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Sludge hauling.
We talked a little bit about sludge hauling when Ryan was here. What we would like to do is go with Gullet again. They have confirmed that they will hold their 2020 pricing, which is the first year that we went to bid in quite some time. There are a couple of things that they can't hold their pricing on because it's not part of their operations. It's outside of, their control. And that's, cost on polymer and cost on disposal, which, they use outside vendors for those products. So, I think both Ryan and I are very happy with Gullet. Their pricing was competitive based upon when we went out to bid. They were the low bidder. There's a bit of comfort in the relationship by extending the contract and staying with the same vendor. They know the plant, they know the operation, they know the way on and off the island. They understand how and why things need to be done, and I think, quite honestly, they get more efficient and more. They have more success and provide a better product the longer that they're here, based upon that familiarity. So, in saying that, both Ryan and I would recommend that we extend with Gullet. And you see that attached to this memo is an email referencing their willingness to hold those costs from 2020.
Right, so you indicate that we could make this an action item tonight?
Yes.
Is there a motion anybody like to make?
I'll make the motion that we take the extend the contract with Gullet Sanitation.
There's support.
I support.
Is there further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
So,
Dust control is the third one that I have a memo on. We probably don't need to do anything as far as an action item on this because we're still trying to figure out what's going on with this bridge and the load limits. If for whatever reason we're unable to get some leniency on those load limits, it is going to be our recommendation to go with calcium chloride again this year if dust bond isn't an option, because as you recall, dust bond only really has one carrier that they utilize, and that carrier is not willing to bring that product across the free bridge with any kind of load limits. So we could be in a situation where they're going to decline again this year. Our preference is to go with them, but we need to have a backup option. So we'll see what happens with these load limits, and if it doesn't get lifted or increased, then our recommendation is going to be to go with the.
so you'll know by the March meeting.
Yeah, I should know by the March meeting, so we can move this to the March agenda and go from there.
Have any comments or questions? We're just gonna
I-
act on it.
This vendor is willing to hold their prices from similar to Gullet from when we bid this out 2 years ago, with increased prices in everything. I think that is a very good thing.
Well, this
for
would be
them
the
to do.
third year.
Be the
same
third year
price.
with them. Yep, and I think John can speak to it better. But once again, familiarity with the island plays big into this. They understand the road network once they've been here for a while. They understand where it needs to go, how it needs to go, how much they need to apply. And John can probably speak to working with them in subsequent years. It gets easier and easier for staff because the contractor knows what they need to be doing. Is that accurate?
We don't have to hold their hand everywhere. We just gotta make sure everybody's off the roadway. So it makes our job a lot easier.
In the first year with a new vendor, it's always kind of John's got to sit there and babysit them and make sure that they know where they're going, where the dirt roads are, and all that stuff. So, I think there's a lot of
The
benefit.
application rate is correct. If they drive too fast, it's not gonna get down, and so it is a great help to us to have experienced contractors.
Well, either way, we have experienced people. Either.
So we'll move that to March, and then we can put that on as an action item if the load limits on the bridge don't change at all by then. And then last one is budget priorities under discussion items. As I mentioned in my memo, we're not to the point in the township's budget process where any kind of draft budget was available to discuss with the DPS commission. We're still waiting on numbers from finance to be able to start putting our projections together and our budgets for next year. But what I can have a conversation with you at this month's meeting is about priorities for the upcoming budget. So this memo references some of the different items that we've discussed previously, just items that we're aware of that we need to address for next year, and priorities that I would like to discuss with you, that I can take that information and then build that into the budget. So I've kind of gone by department or cost center on this memo, starting with the wastewater treatment plant and then concluding with the roads. So hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to take a look at it, and if you have any questions about any of these items or additions or deletions, the floor is yours.
Well, I propose you go down the list
Okay.
and explain the variable frequency pumps.
Sure.
Item number one, the 40,000.
So if you remember last year or this year, we had a failure of some of the variable frequency drives that feed the water into our equalization basin. So we replaced 2 of those under contract. They're original to the basin, like 15 years old. What we want to do is replace the other 2 under this fiscal year so that all of our variable speed drives for the equalization basin are new. So that's what that's all about. Our security camera system over at the plant has taken a turn for the worse, is not operating efficiently right now and needs to be replaced. So there's a proposal for that, or a cost allocated for that. We had talked about landscaping at the plant at the last meeting that we had, so that has been built in there. Our primary and secondary sludge pumps are about 45 years old, so that's up on our proposed asset inventory, our capital improvement plan that Fishbeck is putting together. That's scheduled for next year, so there's been an allocation for that expense. Primary 1 is the remaining primary that we have in the basement. If you recall, we did 2 and 3 last year, so primary 1 is the last one to rebuild. So that'll make sure that both our primaries and our final clarifiers have all been rebuilt in the past 2 years. So there's $150,000 that's been allocated for that. We're going to move the meter to the ACO improvements that Ryan was talking about the other day, or the other meeting. Remember, he was talking about the mag meter and the effluent discharge meter. We're going to move that over to the ACO, so that'll be bundled with that package, so we won't have to worry about that next year. Sprinkler systems for the landscaping, there's been an allocation for that, and then paint. Bill had mentioned, the chairman had mentioned at our last meeting, setting some money aside for the guys to do some painting work at the plant, so that's part of the capital improvement.
Well, my thought was we hire a painting contractor to come over.
Yeah, right, yep.
Then
And
you
then
have
I
an-
know there was some debate about the mower.
I don't know what I know because I asked Derek today. A $6,000 mower?
And that's not uncommon for a commercial mower. I think
We want you to be comfortable on it, Bill.
I think more of the debate is about whether or not we want
Service.
our operator doing the grass cutting over there. I think Ryan would like to do that, but I mean, from a financial standpoint, I think that our private contractor can do that more efficiently. We have a landscape contractor that cuts grass on a lot of township properties, and I think that a mower was budgeted this year. We didn't buy it because it was more advantageous to have our private contractor do it. So,
Well, I'm very much opposed to this mower. I don't, if you want, I've been to the plant on several tours this year. And the guys, there's 3 people out there working. And there's a lot of sweeping inside the various buildings that need to be done. That's my opinion. So they need to operate the plant. We use our contractor who mows the grass for the rest of the township to mow. And Carl Moore does the current mowing. I mean, there's not much grass there to begin with. It's a half-hour job for him. So I'm very much against this. I don't know how everybody else feels. But to me, the time and effort of our staff, they should be, I don't want this to come off wrong, but there's a lot of internal cleaning that I would prefer to see done. And it doesn't seem to be done. Now, the bar screen project, in the shaft, every time I go to take somebody to see it and walk down the staircase, that staircase needs to be swept. I mean, it's full of debris. And it needs to be broomed with all the cobwebs and everything. I mean, so I think that they need to spend more time cleaning and not mowing. That's my feeling. And you got the message from me, so I don't know where everybody else is on that, but he's looking for direction.
Well, I'm not,
I just as soon see an outside contractor do it.
Ryan is, the operator was the one that was kind of made this a priority, had listed this as a priority, so, you know, if the preference is for us to have an outside contractor, can do it.
You go out decide for yourself. You're the manager, but you go look at.
I'm not opposed to that. And on top of that, you know, I've had a conversation with John. My understanding is there's a surplus mower down at DPS that they could potentially use if necessary. So
That is correct.
having one in the budget probably is not even, it's
Okay.
necessary.
All right. Everybody comfortable with that? Move on to the water account.
We're required by Eagle to have a residential backflow preventer program. How we're going to deal with that, whether it's in-house or out, you know, hiring an outside contractor, there needs to be some money set aside for that. So that's what that cost is, based upon a proposal I've gotten from a private contractor. So we can, as long as there's money set aside, we can have that conversation about how it's handled at a later date, but we need to set some resources aside to accomplish that. We have to do our water asset management plan. I'm still waiting on the proposal from the engineer to be able to get that in front of you to get that approved. But that's where the 78.5 and the 35 are coming in. That's basically to do a similar job for our water assets as we have for our sanitary sewer assets. The reason it's so much cheaper than the sanitary sewer is because you don't have the TVing and cleaning for the water main systems, but also you've done a lot of work on the GIS program for the sanitary system that you can duplicate or utilize for the water system. You just overlay that utility over the top of the sanitary sewer map. So you save a lot of money that way. That's why the cost is quite a bit less. So, but you'll have GPSing of valves and hydrants that'll have to happen. That's why you have the GPSing cost, so that they can overlay that on the system, so.
Or you flip the page. You done with water?
Yeah,
Any comments on
unless
water?
there's anything else.
I want to go back to the wastewater plant. So I looked back in the budget. We spent $1 million this year at the plant with all the pumps we replaced, right? Our capital budget was a little over $1 million.
Yeah, but I don't think we spent quite the million, but yeah.
So this, what he's listed here so far is about 400,000. So it's going to be less. And we have the ACO coming the year after. So I'm thinking, maybe you ought to try to put a plug number in to repair the elevator. We don't want to wait for the ACO on that. And I don't know what that plug number, whether it's 10,000 or 100,000. You should probably discuss that with him a little bit.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a conversation with the elevator company about, you know,
Right.
where we're at.
Maybe we need a new elevator company. I don't know.
Instead of the mower.
Well, it could be pretty expensive to fix the elevator. I mean, hope we don't have to replace the elevator. We've replaced a lot of parts. There, that's innovative. So would you try to come up with a plug number?
Borrow from John.
It could be substantial, but it'll certainly be less than we dealt with in the current.
Been a long night.
As far as the water account goes, if we're all set with the wastewater treatment plant, John, do you have anything else that you wanna add that you're aware of?
No, nothing at this time.
I think that we've talked about the cost of meters and replacement of meters, so we'll have to evaluate that line item, because I know we've got a fair number that are timing out or expiring or running out of batteries, so.
The battery life is running out. It was a 20-year battery. We're at 16 years right now, so. I just ordered some yesterday.
You know, Derek, on the paint figure, if you looked at the lower levels, some of the basement levels, all the big pipes that are down there, they need to be cleaned, number one. But several of them, the paint's peeling off. I just wonder if you shouldn't put 20,000 in for paint. If we're gonna hire a commercial painter to come in and help them with painting, to make the place look more presentable. I mean, that's a small amount of money, but I'm thinking of a commercial painter that would come in and we'd have to identify the areas to be painted, but there's a lot of opportunity to spruce up the appearance of the building. Take pride in it.
$10,000 not very much for a commercial painter.
Oh, I'd suggest maybe we go to 20.
Okay. I don't have anything else for water. We do. Was that included in your packet?
No.
No.
Okay, it should have been. 3.4, I think is what we were at. It might have been 3.9. Yeah, it was 3. I think it was 3.4, 3.9, somewhere in there. It was somewhere
been
between
4.
3 and 4. So, but I think it was right around 3.4 actually. So what that means as far as rate structures are concerned, I gotta put it in the system and figure out exactly, what that's gonna be. Because they have a 3.4% increase doesn't mean that we end up having a 3.4% increase, because we're dealing with different capacities and water loss and stuff like that. So you guys will end up seeing something in the form of a proposal for a rate adjustment for next year, probably in March or maybe April. We'll budget for it, and then you guys normally see it after, quite honestly, after we actually budget for it.
Okay.
Drainage, we budgeted for $75,000 last year. We've been right around there, so the idea was to budget the same as what we have in previous years. Same for ditching. We quite honestly, last year I think we ran out of time before we actually ran out of money. So whether or not we want to start that program, if we got $60,000 again for next year to do ditching, if we want to start that program earlier in the year rather than starting it right after Labor Day, maybe we do that if we're still looking at doing 60,000. You think you can find 60,000 and work out there?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing was growing the grass. That's why we were starting later in the season, so you could grow the grass back sooner.
Right,
So
yeah.
we can certainly start earlier. And then just plant the grass when it's conducive to grow. And we did have some touch-up that we got to finish up from this year that we didn't get grass seed on.
Right.
So-
Yeah, because we started digging right after Labor Day, and by the time we ended up getting done, which was a month and a half, we couldn't grow grass anymore. So we started earlier. We just saved those locations because we didn't have a ton of erosion between when he finished and when we hydroseeded. So I think we should probably be okay for that, assuming that the commission is interested in allocating a similar amount of money next year for that. But it's been I think a pretty successful program. I mean, it's amazing the problems we find with plugged culverts, the jetting that we have to do to make sure things flow. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind, and John, you can chime in if you want, that it makes a huge improvement in those areas that we do the work. There is no doubt. And some of those ditch lines and culverts haven't been touched in God knows how long. And you have water pooling up, just on Lake and Rucker. Well, you had water pooling up because some of those culverts were completely compromised. They were completely clogged, basketballs in them and everything else. Well, water can't go anywhere. So that's been a really good program from a maintenance standpoint for those ditch lines. So definitely would recommend continuing with that for next year. And then we had talked earlier tonight about drainage projects. Once again, those that we're talking about on West River are going to spill over into next fiscal year, so we'll build those into the budget. If there are any other drainage projects that you guys would like to prioritize, we can put allocations in there for those if you have an idea. John, do you have anything?
Nothing at this time. I think those two will make a huge difference.
We have, for the general sewer system, we have cleaning and televising, the normal PACP stuff, asset management plan, so that's the next year in that budget, so those have been allocated for. Other than that, I don't have any other for sanitary sewer at this point in time, unless, John, you have any other that you want to prioritize. Okay. Refuse, that's pretty straightforward. We are going to save on tolls this year, being that we're not going to have to cover those tolls. So hopefully that'll give some relief to the budget some. I think we were budgeting $27,000 in previous years for tolls. We won't have that next year. And the proposal in the budget is to continue the glass recycling. So unless anybody's opposed to that. Roads, the chairman had mentioned at our last meeting, putting some money aside for additional personnel for roadside cutting or clearing. So that's listed as a priority. dust control, roadside mowing, priority winter maintenance, emergency winter snow removal, and then 115,000 is what the balance would be based upon that proposal, which we could end up putting on either preventative maintenance, crack sealing, mill and fill in certain areas. You know, we don't have to necessarily dedicate the project right now, but, you know, at least have an allocation for some sort of road work for the next fiscal year is what we would kind of list in the budget. It would just say 115 road work, capital improvements, or something along those lines. And then we as a group can decide later on where we want to place that money. And some of that decision will be based upon how this other stuff plays out with the county on East River Road or West River Road or whatever ends up happening there. So that's all I have, and we'll get more in depth into it in March when we end up bringing a draft proposal for the budget forward for you. So,
All right, I don't have any further comments. Other commissioners' reports. Dave?
No, sir.
Nope, nothing.
Nothing further at this time.
No, sir.
Anything else, John or Derek?
Sure.
Nope.
Need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Next meeting will be March 8th.
March 8th, yes.
It's been moved that we adjourn. Is there support?
Support.
Further we adjourn. All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.